Good morning, everyone. I am Farah Belizario. I am the Regional Director of Agent Services for Lair Realty here in Florida. And today we are talking about calendar mastery, but honestly, this class could have had several different names because really it's more about time management, productivity, efficiency, and kind of having all of those ideals culminate in your calendar and how you manage your day-to-day activities towards success and whatever goals that you have. So we're just going to jump right in. However, before we start, I do want to remind everybody that we are doing our Forgotten Soldiers packing event next Wednesday. We have 2 sessions on the left-hand side. If you haven't registered already, please do so. I want to be very frank. We need your help. This is going to be a really, really awesome opportunity to give back to your community for the holiday season by helping us pack care packages for deployed U.S. soldiers who may not have a family at home that can do it for them, or their family can't afford to send them care packages. These care packages are full of essentials like toothpaste and deodorant, so on and so forth. They are sorely needed. And so if you can just come out and join us, we have a morning session from 10 to 12. I do want to say it's not actually really that full 2 hours. I've been told packing really only takes 30 to 45 minutes. However, we will be having a vendor join us in the morning. It is going to be coast to coast closings. Of course, it's going to be Alma Rosario joining us and providing our packers with breakfast. And for the afternoon session, we will have a similar event, 12 to 2. Again, not the full 2 hours. However, we will be joined by Chelsea Howell of Palm Beach Mortgage Group, who will be providing our packers with lunch. So don't miss it. It's just a couple of hours out of one singular day, and we hope to see you there. All right, so today we're going to be talking about a couple of things. As you know, I always like to start with contents to give you an overview of what we'll be talking about. We're going to be talking about mastering time management because, and I want to say this, I don't have a slide for this, but I do want to say I've worked in real estate as from executive assistant to transaction management, et cetera, for the last 10 years. And one of the biggest issues that I have seen all realtors have, no matter where they are in their career, is time management. We all kind of start in a structure of time where in school, we're told when to be there, what to do, when projects are due, so on and so forth. So we don't typically come from a world, most of us anyway, where we have to manage our time ourselves. Yes, independently on a smaller scale, we do. However, we're pretty much told what to do. Now you got nothing but time and a big goal. So how do we structure our time, our productivity, and our focus to align with our goals so that we will achieve success? Other thing I want to mention is that a lot of what I'm going to be talking about, you can find in Algorithms by Stacey Alcorn. Additionally, Stacey also wrote another book, I have to look up the name, in 2007 about time management, or it was published in 2007. Definitely a good book to look at as well, because it is very, very important. You cannot succeed without time management. We're going to be talking about key principles of time management for realtors, identifying objectives, which is the big issue for a lot of people. You know, you have your why am I doing this? Why am I here? But figuring out objectives on a smaller scale can be a little bit tough. Productivity techniques and Google Calendar integration at the end with a quick demo. So here are some key principles. Let me move this out of the way. Here are some key principles of time management. And when we're talking about principles, we're really talking about reasons you would want to use this in your life, right? Do you want to prioritize? Do you want to focus? Do you want to be efficient? These are the principles that we're talking about. So prioritization, this will help you identify and rank tasks and things that you need to do by importance and focus on what moves the needle most. What are the things that need to happen on a day-to-day basis that will make you successful? Not the things we want to do, not the things we enjoy doing, not the things that sometimes we want to avoid doing. What are the things? Let's identify and prioritize the tasks and the actions that are going to bring us success. Focus. We want to eliminate distractions and concentrate on one task at a time to improve productivity and reduce errors. This is a big thing for me because I think when we feel like we are stressed, it's easy to get scattered brains. And stress can come in all forms, right? It can be because you have too much to do. It can also be because you don't know what to do. You don't know what to focus on. So being able to focus and dial in on what it is, what our objective is, and what our granular goals and tasks are going to be, very, very important. And efficiency, big piece of time management. This is the entire goal of time management in my mind, is to be able to achieve in an efficient manner my goals. If I'm not efficient about it, am I really using my time wisely? We want to streamline tasks, utilize tools like Google Calendar, which we will dive into later, to maximize our productivity, complete tasks in less time. I think that's a big piece too. I think a lot of the time when we think of real estate, the goal of real estate and the goal of transacting and doing business, we have this really, really big idea of it. And it seems like it's insurmountable, like we cannot even try to achieve it or get over it. If we're efficient about our granular actions and tasks, then we can pretty much do anything. So our first step is to identify objectives. Now, to be fair, this could be its own class all by itself that we're not going to go into. To be honest, I think this is where 90% of realtors get hung up, right? Because you have an idea, right? I want to do real estate. How do I do that? How do I get there? Well, I think you should break it down into 3 separate sections. The why and the what are together. Your why is a personal thing, right? Why am I doing real estate? I love working with people. I love helping people. I love being part of their journey. I love the flexibility in my life that it gives me. I love that my day-to-day work life is diverse and I do different things every single day and I'm not just sitting at a desk. The why really defines the objective, why the objective is meaningful. Why do I care about achieving this objective? You can have your why, it'll be personal, it can be career goals, it can be whatever it is, but typically it's something that, why does this matter to me? An example of this is if the goal is increasing closings, then the why could relate to career growth, financial goals, or work-life balance. Maybe I want to travel more, so I need to close more. Or a grander why would be, why am I even in real estate? Why do I care about real estate? And really more so that's the what, right? The how is, how am I going to achieve my goals? How am I going to reach the objective? What actions will I take to reach my goals? And this is the hardest piece of it, right? Because we have our goal, right? We have our starting point. Okay, I have my why, I want to do it. I have my end point, my goal, right? Which is to overarching to be a realtor. But how do we get there? It's like, maybe I want to go somewhere. Am I taking a train? Am I taking a plane? Am I driving? Am I taking a bus? Like the how really defines how we go about getting to this objective. We want to break down your objective into detailed steps that keep you on track. Now, another thing with the how, for realtors specifically, there's millions of hows. Am I cold calling in the mornings? Am I sending out postcards? Am I achieving this through social media? How am I connecting with people in order to reach my ultimate objective, which is being a full-time realtor or closing more or hitting $1 million of volume for the year, whatever your goal is? How is very important. And I think a lot of people do get very hung up on this because there's so many options, right? It's like choice overload. How do I do it? How do I call? Do I email? Do I text? Am I doing campaigns? Am I door knocking? How am I doing this? And then taking that how, once you figure it out, again, this could be its own class. The how can be its own class. Taking that how, once you figured it out, however long it takes you to figure it out, and breaking your how down into granular steps. Maybe your how is calling expired. Okay, what are my granular action steps that I am taking every single day? Maybe on Monday morning between 9 and 11, I am calling, and 11 to 1, I am following up. And I do that every day for 5 days in a week. We want to break down what our goal is to how we're achieving our goal, break down the how to granular daily action steps. The when, we just talked about granular action steps. How often are we doing this? And are we repeating this action over and over again? Is it daily? Is it weekly? And I know for a fact that in order for anything to be effective in our business, it has to be something that we are repeatedly doing, right? We're trying it every day for the next 6 months to see if this is something that's viable, to see if this is a way the how works. So we want to schedule consistent times for key actions like daily client follow-ups or weekly goal reviews. I love weekly goal reviews. Sometimes it can be easy to drift away from your ultimate objective, right? Because let's say your ultimate objective is a mountain, but your day-to-day granular action steps are walking down a path. You can forget that my ultimate goal was to go up this mountain if I'm just aimlessly walking down paths. So we want to make sure we're constantly checking back in with our overarching objective to make sure we are still on track, to check if our how is still working or if there's any tweaking we need to do to the how as well. So we're going to jump into a couple of techniques. We talked about the objective, the how, the why, the when, so on and so forth. We're going to jump into a couple of techniques. First, we're going to talk about productivity techniques. I love productivity techniques that you can really use to organize once we have our how, right? Organize, okay, if this is my how am I going to break this down every single day? What am I going to do? How am I going to perceive this how and my steps and focus on them and make sure they get done every single day? Number one, we have our 80-20 rule. I live by this rule. It's a great rule to know. Did you know 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts, right? That sounds super crazy. However, when you think about it, when we're thinking about growing our business and moving the needle, so to speak, it's easy to get bogged down by the things we want to do, the things we enjoy doing or believe that we enjoy doing. For instance, maybe you like social media, maybe you like doing any of these other things, but they're not moving the needle for you. Is it part of the 80 or is it part of the 20? Right? Is it 80% that's not moving the needle at all and you're just wasting your time? Or are these a 20% of your efforts that you can really focus and drill down on to move the needle? How to apply? We want to identify high impact tasks. For instance, if our objective is real estate, obviously, and our how is, we're going to use the same how. Our how is cold calling expired leads, right? Are we spending time organizing our pages? Are we typing things up? Are we neatening around our desk? Or are we literally dialing the phone? Right? Because it's easy if you are scared, you're nervous, you think it's not going to work, you're uncomfortable with calling people, to say, all right, I'm going to get to it. I'm going to do it in a second. But is it going to give you the results you're looking for? We want to make sure that we know that 80% of our results come from 20% of our efforts. And we have to make sure that 20% is high impact. And we want to prioritize them from day to day as we are identifying these high impact tasks, right? What we now have identified, picking up the phone and calling is our high impact task for the day. Are we gonna then go full laundry? Are we gonna then go, oh, you know what, I gotta go do this real quick. Oh, let me go move my car parked in the wrong spot. Oh, let me go get gas. No, we need to prioritize this 20% of activity. What to avoid? Low impact focus. This is a big trigger here, right? Because it does happen quite often that you want to dwell on tasks that yield minimal results because they're your comfort zone. They make you feel like you're doing something at the same time you are very comfortable and you're not actually getting anything done. That's a low impact. Now, these are things that have some impact on your business, but may not be that high priority item that we want to really focus our energy on. Urgent distractions. What a great way to say it. Avoid letting less important tasks derail your priorities. I think we're all guilty on some level of procrastinating by doing things that are not important, because again, it itches that scratch, right? Not just sitting here on the couch watching TV, I'm actually doing something. But is that something part of the 20%? ABC method, it's just another way to kind of really perceive the 80-20 rule. 80-20 rule, also there's another way that it is called, it's called the Pareto principle. If you ever see the Pareto principle, it is the 80-20 rule, just going back to that. ABC method is another great way to do this. It's a little bit more granular. So in the 80-20, right, we're really talking about A, high priority, and C, low priority. In the ABC method, we're talking about high priority, mid priority, and lower priority. How to apply? We want to focus on A task first, the tasks that we need to implement for our day to quote unquote be complete, for our daily goals to have been achieved. They need to be prioritized and they need to happen initially. They need to happen first in the beginning of the day. Delegate C tasks. This is a really great idea. So if something is a C task, right, it may not be something we need to do ourselves. It may not be something we need to do right now, right? And when we're talking about delegate, even if you're an individual realtor, because I know a lot of the time when we're having the idea of delegating, you might think, well, I'm not on a team, who am I delegating to? I will say that you're wrong, and I'm going to tell you why. At Lair, we have phenomenal resources, Lean on the assets and the resources that Lair gives you as a realtor and delegate your task. Think, hey, this is a task I need to done. I need to edit my listing presentation. Now, that's a really good task. However, if it's some little edits here, some colors there, some words there, you want to change your picture, you can reach out to our marketing team and say, hey, I need these few things changed on my listing presentation. Can you help me out? That's delegating the task, right? What we want to avoid, we want to avoid overcomplication. We don't want to toggle back and forth between, this might be a B, this might be an A. You're going to know your A's. They're most likely the thing you don't want to do, which is the truth, right? We want to make sure that the A's stay the A's. We don't want to pollute either group, the A, B's, or C's. Ignoring lower tasks, don't neglect B and C tasks. And the reason why is this, right? Let's say that we have a task and all we do all day is a task. Great, you feel super accomplished. However, what happens to those tasks that we labeled as B and C? Maybe we want to work on our holiday campaign to our prior clients. What happens to all of that? It just gets pushed. It gets pushed. It doesn't go away. It doesn't melt. It doesn't disappear. It gets pushed. And then all of a sudden, it feels like all of your tasks are in the A rank, and they are not. So we want to make sure we're doing A's, B's, trying to delegate C's, or maybe reevaluate our C's and see if they even need to be on our list. Eisenhower matrix. I also put a little picture of this so that you can really see what it looks like. It is a 2x2 matrix, super easy, and it simply categorizes tasks by urgency and importance. All of these productivity techniques really categorize what I need to focus on with my day. You want to prioritize important and urgent tasks and delegate low priority items, very similar to the ABC method. What to avoid? Urgency trap. That's a really good one. Avoid focusing solely on urgency tasks. Now, the reason why urgency traps occur is because of what we just talked about in the ABC method, right? I didn't do B, I didn't do C, and now all of a sudden, 2 days later, because it's due at 12 o'clock, it's an A, right? So we want to avoid that, because then what's happening, we're missing all of our high priority focuses for the day that we're in if we're busy cleaning up our low priority tasks that we didn't do yesterday. So we want to avoid that. Don't use the matrix sporadically, apply it regularly. I'll be honest, I'm not an Eisenhower matrix person. I'm an 80-20 rule person. I'm a time blocker, and we'll go into that a little bit more about combining some of these techniques. But if you're going to use any of them, the proof is in the pudding, right? And as we know, with all real estate and all of our endeavors, consistency is key. So if you're going to use it, yeah, maybe you want to try it out and see if this is something that you can work with within the realm of your business, if it makes sense, if the energy you're putting into it makes sense for you. But if you're going to do it every day. Commit to it. Commit to having these tools and these techniques part of your daily life. Application techniques. So before we talked about productivity techniques, right? Ways to perceive the information that we are looking at to prioritize different tasks. Now we're talking about application techniques. How do we apply these in terms of time, right? So our first one and our easiest one is going to be time blocking. We want to allocate specific blocks of time for dedicated tasks. Now, when we're talking about time blocking, a lot of the time blocking isn't very specific, right? It's, in short, it's a space of time, maybe 2 to 3 hours, where I say, I'm going to handle tasks like this, right? A lot of the time with time blocking, you lose specificity. You really want to use time blocking if you have a bunch of related tasks. For instance, I have time blocks on my calendar that are just for administrative work. It literally says it's an admin block. That's when I do anything and everything. Check my email, check all my other communication platforms, respond to people, fill out any type of paperwork, et cetera, make any type of phone calls I need, right? So it's not very specific, but it's a block of time that we're using for collected tasks that we believe go together. We want to allocate specific blocks of time for dedicated tasks. How to do it? We want to create a weekly schedule, blocking out time for each task and including breaks and buffer times. Now, I don't do time blocks per task. I do think that's a little bit more difficult. I do time blocks for groups of tasks. Action steps. You want to plan your week in advance, right? We want to, and that's a time block all on its own, right? Having a time block at the beginning of your week for weekly planning is genius, right? Because we want to make sure that the time blocks we used from last week are effective and efficient, right? If we have any appointments, any other things we need to do, it's a great opportunity for you to sit and review all aspects of your life, personal included, and get them on a calendar. I'm going to touch on personal inclusion as well. And the reason why is because we have a life, and living that life takes time, whether we want it to or not. And so that time should be represented on your calendar all the time. I said time like 5 times, sorry. But for instance, if you go to the gym every Saturday morning from 10 to 12, that's a big chunk of your week. That's a huge chunk of that day, right? So it should go on your work calendar. It should go on your calendar to show that this time in my week is not available for the tasks that I need to accomplish for my business. If you work 2 jobs, if you work part-time in one job and part-time in real estate, the only way to make that type of scenario work is to get it on your calendar. For instance, if you donate your time at your community center Tuesdays, 2 to 10 p.m., it needs to be on your calendar, right? So that you know the time you're working with. Really, you should be doing this weekly and monthly, identifying all of the things in your life that take up time, which is pretty much everything, that you can calculate as recurring. For instance, I go grocery shopping every Sunday morning. It is on my personal calendar. It's not on my work calendar because it's a Sunday. However, for a realtor, your work calendar is 7 days a week, so it should be there as well, right? You want to use color coding. I love color coding my calendar. This makes it really, really easy to look at the calendar and see what am I spending most of my time on this week, right? And it's a really good way, and I'll kind of tap back into the 80-20 principle, right? The Pareto principle. It's a really good way to see if you're doing your 80-20 rule, right? If all of the stuff you have on your calendar is more 80 stuff and there's not enough 20% stuff, then we got a problem. And you can instantly see, hey, I'm not achieving my goals. I'm not making my phone calls every day. I'm not doing my door knocking. I didn't send out any email campaigns last week. You can easily see that you're missing things that make you successful. And avoid overscheduling, leave room for breaks, especially for realtors. I have seen calendars before where it's just packed and packed and the person is overwhelmed. And it was quite literally that they weren't leaving travel time between showing properties and doing open houses. If you want to get that detailed and that granular with your calendar and with your scheduling, then you need to make sure you have time to eat. You have time to travel. You have time to take breaks, brain breaks. Pomodoro technique. And this is a really, really good one. I am not a Pomodoro person. My 11-year-old is a big Pomodoro person, which is super cool. It is working in focus bursts for maximum efficiency, right? So when we're thinking about this, the best way to think about it is schedule. We talked about brain breaks before, right? It's scheduling focused energy, focusing your mind for X amount of minutes and taking a break for X amount of minutes. How to do that? You're going to use a timer on your phone, setting intervals for focus, work, and break. Now, these intervals are usually 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off, 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. So that means for 25 minutes, you don't have your phone in your hand. You are not like playing, your screens are off, whatever you're doing, that is all you're doing. All distractions are away and gone. You're hyper focusing in that 25 minutes. And then the alarm goes off. You breathe, you take 5 minutes to yourself. Action steps, we're going to set a timer for 25 minutes of focus work, followed with a 5-minute break. That 5-minute break, you can play a video game. You can scratch the distraction itch in your mind and do anything that fulfills you or makes you feel better in that 5 minutes. We want to avoid skipping breaks. This is why I don't do the Pomodoro technique. I'm really horrible at not skipping breaks. I will sit there for an hour and a half and just zoomed in, and then at the end, my eyes are red, my head is hurting, and it's because I didn't take any breaks. So this typically doesn't work, but for me, however, we're just giving you application techniques, and I want you to try it for yourself. My absolute favorite that I use every day, I have literally saved years and years of notebooks of this, is daily task lists. And they're not just task lists, they're rolling task lists, which kind of makes it more fun and more stressful at the same exact time. We want to ensure that no task gets left behind with daily rolling task lists. How do you do this? You use a planner or a digital app. I'm a pen to paper girl. I like the feel of paper. I like pens. So I'm a paper and notebook human being. And we want to prioritize them by importance. And you want to use a planner or a digital app to list your tasks. And then you want to prioritize them by importance, which is very, very cool because you can now incorporate maybe an 80-20 rule, maybe ABC method, so on and so forth on your daily task list, which is what I do. Action steps. You want to review your list each morning and pull wow, I spelled pull really wrong. Sorry. You want to pull unfinished tasks from the day before onto your new list. This is a rolling function, right? So we're going to look at our list from the day before. We're going to see anything that wasn't crossed out or didn't get accomplished, and we're going to pull it into the next day. We want to make sure we don't overload. And I'm going to show you guys my notebook. This is something I do every single day of my life, even on Saturdays and Sundays at home, right? So I have my tasks that I'm crossing out that I'm going over with. And then for my 80-20, I will highlight the things that need to get accomplished that are part of my 20% to make sure I focus on those first. And then anything that doesn't get done gets pulled on to the next day, and so on and so forth. That way I never forget anything because it's all written down. Even if I have to keep pulling it forward because it was a C-level task for 3 weeks, I will not forget it because I have it written down. So it's very, very helpful. All right, so here is the fun equation, right, that I have in my brain. Productivity, and there's really some other adjectives that should be here. Well-managed productivity and focused application will give you efficiency, right? So we're taking some of our productivity, let's go back, some of our productivity techniques and our application techniques, and we're combining them to create a plan and a strategy towards efficiently achieving our goals and objectives. So for one, we have 80-20 and time blocking. This is a really good combination, right? And with this combination, 80-20 plus time blocking, we are going to maximize our impact with structured focus. How to do it? We're going to focus on high impact tasks while allocating specific time blocks to work on them. Great application of both of them all together. Here's an example. After analyzing your tasks, you find that social media outreach and follow-ups with existing clients are the most productive activities, the 20% that yield the 80%. You then allocate 2 hours every morning exclusively for these activities on your calendar. Perfect. Chef's kiss. Absolutely perfect. This is a great way to do it. And to be fair, you can come up with any combination of productivity techniques and application techniques that you like. For instance, my productivity plus application equals efficiency is 80-20 and task lists. I love that. I get everything done in a timely manner. I feel like I'm in control of my schedule and I have a lot on my plate. Believe me when I say I do. I feel like I'm able to achieve quite a bit by continually doing it. And another point that I want to say is that I do it every single day. Whatever your application and productivity combo is, you have to do it every day or it'll get away from you. There was a couple of times when I skipped days doing task lists and I was completely lost. And not even like a couple of days later. And I'm talking within my work week. I'm not talking about the weekends because I don't account for weekends in my task list anyway. But I skipped a day during the work week where I had a lot going on, but there was just a few big things that I did, so I didn't bother writing it down, and I was so lost in the sauce. So don't do that. Don't skip days. We want to stay focused. ABC method, here's another great combo, plus daily task list is a comprehensive task management. This is an all-inclusive task appreciation list that we will do here. So how to do it. Daily review. We want to start each day by reviewing your tasks and assigning them A, B, or C priority level on their importance. List creation, write it down, type it out, put it somewhere, right? Create a rolling task list where A tasks must be completed that day, and B and C tasks can roll over to the next day if unfinished. Now, we don't want the B and C to roll over like infinitely, right? Because then we will only get A's. That's what I talked about before. However, if you have a couple of B or C's that you're doing because you think they will help, or you're testing something new out and it doesn't have a due date, it's okay to let it roll over a couple of times. What I would say is when you're doing your weekly review at the beginning of the week, you want to make sure that this task that's a C level that I didn't get done, do I need to do it at all, right? Because if I haven't found the time to do it in the last few days and I keep rolling it over, maybe it needs to be deleted altogether and not rolled over. What I'll do then is have like a list, a separate rolling list of things that I will maybe touch on in the future, but just have it written down somewhere. Checkoff system, use a checkoff system to track completed tasks, move on any rolling tasks to ensure nothing is overlooked. If you're a writer person like me, if you're like a pen to paper type of human being, I recommend using highlighters to identify your 20%, right? Because what I'll do is I'll write down my entire task list with the rolled over items from yesterday, and then I will go through it after I've written everything down and highlight my 20%. This has to happen today, or I didn't have a successful day. That is what my brain is thinking. Very, very cool. So now we're kind of on time. I'm a couple of minutes behind. We're going to talk about Google Calendar. And I'm going to stop sharing for 2 seconds. And I am going to now share my Google Calendar. And let me bring this over here so I can still see you guys. Now, while we have a minute, if anybody has a question, this is a great time to ask. I know there's a few of us here, but if you have a question, feel free to ask me. Let me get this all shared up. Okay. Okay. Wonderful. So let me unshare that. Okay. So this is my weekly calendar, right? This is my actual weekly calendar. And first of all, we're going to do an overview of Google Calendar to begin with so that everyone will be able to see it, right? Starting in the left corner, we have a big button that is to create an event. Now, my favorite thing about Google and Google Calendar, right, is that it is very user-friendly. And one way that it is user-friendly is that there are typically multiple ways to achieve a task. So if I want to create an event, I can click create, or I can click on my calendar directly in the time slot that I want to add the event. So we have our create event button. We also have underneath that, we have an overview of the monthly calendar and the date that we are on. Now, I'm going to show you where you don't necessarily have to have a view like mine. I do a weekly view because I live my life one week to the next and organize my task list day to day. So that's how I need to view it. However, I will show you a quick way to change that if that doesn't work for you. Going down, we have meet with. For instance, if I have a meeting with somebody and I forgot where it was, even if it were in the past, I could simply type their name and the event that I am meeting them with will come up. So for instance, let's say I want to search Len Lockery. Oh, it didn't show it. Okay, we'll come back to this. Beneath this, we have my calendar. So this is a way, I know this looks absolutely crazy on this side, right? Do not worry about it. I know it's crazy. Wait, let me undo that one. I color code every type of recurring event that I have so that I can look and say, okay, this is something that I do often. This is something I don't do often enough. And also I can quickly at a glance look at my calendar without looking at the details and say, okay, I have an important meeting on this day. So for instance, if you look over on the left, my leadership meetings are in yellow. These are any meetings that I have with the rest of the management staff throughout Lear or any member within that group, right? So it's going to be yellow. I have that meeting on tomorrow at 11 a.m. It just helps me manage the way I view my calendar. Do you have to do this? No. However, I do think it is hard to view a singular colored calendar because then it's just a blob of a one color. Does that make sense? It's really hard to perceive it that way. Then we have a couple other things. Admin times, one of my biggest things that I have going, and I have this colored incorrectly. Admin time, like I said before, this is anything that I'm going to do that has to do with checking emails, checking my calendar, structuring my week, planning my time, etc. This is a great way to do it. Maybe you won't have as many individual color-coded calendars. However, if you didn't want to do any calendars at all, you can also go into an event, simply edit it, and change the color right here, right? But you would have to then have like a separate little list of what those colors mean. So that's why I think it is easier to have individualized calendars. Going into our top over here, we have a couple of main menus at the top. We have the hamburger menu, which is it's called, where we can pull this draw in and out, or we can just have our big screen of calendar. We have today, let's say you are focusing and searching throughout your month and you're like, whoa, what day is it today? Maybe I want to see what is going on the 2nd or the 3rd, and it changes the date. I need to look at my day. Instead of scrolling and looking for what day it is today, I can simply click today and it'll take me back to today's exact day and time, which is very cool. Of course, up here we have the week. October, it's not giving the date through November 2024 because we're in the month transition. And then we have a couple of other navigational buttons over here. Here's where you could change your view of the calendar itself. So for me, I am a week person. However, maybe you want to look at the day, right? This is a great way to do it. Maybe you're a day-to-day person. I need to see what's going on with my week, or else I go crazy, because I'll just go crazy going back and forth between different days scheduling things. Maybe you're a month person, which looks even crazier for me. This is why I can't do month, because it's overwhelming for me, right? Maybe you don't have that many tasks. Maybe you've been able to skim it down so you have less tasks that are more high impact, and you can look at a month schedule. A month schedule for me will be like looking at my son's like school calendar or sports calendar. Those are the things that I think a month calendar is better to view. You also have some options here as well. You can show weekends or not show weekends. I always choose to not show weekends because I don't typically work on a weekend. I'm available to you guys on a weekend. You can call, you can email me, and I will answer. However, it's not an actual work day for me, so I typically do not show my weekends. Show declined events. I want to show declined events because what if I now have time to join that event again? I don't want it completely off my calendar. I want to see that it's there, and I said I couldn't go, but maybe I want to join anyway. Show completed tasks. I don't do my task on Google Calendar, but we're going to talk about tasks here as well. And show appointment schedules. This is a really good one. We're going to jump into this. Anybody that uses Calendly, I'm going to show you why you never have to use Calendly again. Just saying, I'm not a big Calendly fan. And then we can either view tasks. I don't really have tasks like that in my calendar. I don't use my task, but you can use it to write your day-to-day task list in here for sure. Or we can view it as a calendar. Now getting into the meat of the calendar itself. Google Calendar is my favorite product that Google has. And B, it is something I use every single day, even on the weekend, constantly checking my calendar, constantly making sure that I am managing my time well. When we want to create something in our calendar, like I said, we had this button in the top left corner. This button has a drop down because we have a couple of options of what kind of event we want to add to our calendar. So we can do an event. An event would be classified as anything that has a timestamp, that begins and ends within the days that we're either going to or we're attending on layerzoom.com like we are right now. A task is something I need to achieve during the day. It doesn't necessarily have a timestamp. We're going to talk about that as well. Out of office is something you can do if you're not available. I wouldn't worry about it as well most of the time for realtors, because you guys are never out of office, which is super fun. And then we also have appointment schedule. So a couple earlier this year, Google added this functionality to Google Calendar, and it's really, really awesome. As a matter of fact, it's going to be the second thing I show you after I show you how to create an event and all of the functionality you have within that. Wait, are we on today? Just checking. Yes, we are on today. Okay. So if I want to create an event, I have the option to hit the plus sign in the top left corner like we discussed, or I can go to the time and date on my actual calendar and click the empty space, or even a space next to a filled space, and just click it. And now we get this really adorable pop-up. It's not adorable, but you know. At the top, we're going to add our title. So I'm going to say meet with Betty. Sorry for my clacky keyboard. Meet with Betty Boop. Google wants to know if there's an event. Am I out of office for the day? Is it a task, or is it an appointment schedule? Let's start with event, sorry. And Betty Boop and I are going to meet on Thursday, October 1st between 12 and 1. Now, if I click that space again, it further opens up to give me even further option. Maybe Betty Boop and I are spending a day together, right? And maybe therefore it is all day, and you will see it populate at the top of your screen to let you know that's what you're doing. It won't take up this whole entire banner, because that would not be fun. Maybe it's just 12 to 1. We want to make sure that our time zone is correct. 9 times out of 10, it will be. I wouldn't mess with it if you don't have to. Another good thing is does it repeat, right? Maybe Betty Boop and I meet every Thursday for lunch from 12 to 1. This is where Remember, we talked about your personal life and the things that you would do in your personal life that you do repeatedly that take up time, and therefore they should be on your calendar. This is how we would fold them into our calendar. Maybe Betty Boop and I have lunch every Thursday, and I'm blocking out that time from 12 to 1. So I would choose weekly on Thursday. Now, Google gives you a couple of options, like default options that you can choose. Maybe it's weekly on Thursday. Maybe it's monthly on the last Thursday. Maybe it's annually on October 31st. Maybe it's every weekday, Monday through Friday. If you cannot find what you're looking for, you can always choose custom, and you get, surprise, surprise, another pop-up. And that gives you a custom recurrence window where you can edit. Maybe it's bi-weekly. She and I have lunch. It's every 2 weeks on Thursday, and it never ends. Or we can say it ends on December 31st. We're done. She's moving to Transylvania as of January 1. So we won't be having it after that. Or maybe after a couple of weeks, I want to shut it off. So you got some options here. If I want to add guests, I guarantee you I don't have Betty Boop in here, but we're going to try. You simply type in her name. Now, the cool thing about all Google products is their interconnectivity, right? So if someone exists on my calendar, then I can pull their name up here. I'm going to use Sergio as an example. Maybe, let me put Betty Boop plus Sergio, if he doesn't feel left out in the title. Maybe I want to invite Sergio, so I'm going to find him. And because Sergio is in my contacts and I've emailed him, the person doesn't actually need to be saved in your contacts. You need to have at least conversed with them via email for their email to be saved by Google. You'll be able to find them here and send Sergio. Now, we got a couple of other options. We get guest permissions. Can they see the guest list? Maybe I don't want Sergio to be able to invite anybody else. Maybe it's just about he and I and Betty Boop, right? Or it's okay for him to invite other people. Also, maybe I don't want him to see the guest list either. That's a big one too. So make sure you're using your guest permissions menu. Google has this default that I'm sure we can turn off, right? Where it has a Google Meet option in every calendar event that you put on your calendar. And it defaults it the minute you add an additional person or invite a different person to your event. I'm going to toggle that off because we're meeting in person. I can add the location here. You can always try to write the place by name if it's a popular business or something that appears on Google Maps. That's really the best way to define it. If it appears on Google Maps, then you can use it here. So for instance, let's say maybe we're meeting at the airport. I don't know. I'm going to put that in there. If I need to add a description, pardon me, if I need to add a description, I can add that here, so on and so forth. And I could change the calendar. This is where my calendars that I showed you on the left hand of my screen kind of come into play, right? Because now I have the option. What am I classifying this event under? Is it admin time? Is it a leadership meeting? Let's call it a leadership meeting and save. Sorry, Sergio, you're gonna get an invite. You can decline it. And so now that is on my calendar. This is a really, really easy way to know how to use Google Calendar. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you that is super cool and has what I believe made Calendly, I don't know if there's any Calendly fans out there, has made Calendly kind of obsolete, is now Google has a functionality to create an appointment schedule. So I'm going to show you that. We're going to start it out like we are creating an event in the calendar. And instead of event, we're going to choose appointment schedule. Now, I already have a built-in appointment schedule that when you email me, you can see it on my email signature. Hopefully that helped. You can see it on my email signature, right? Where you can click a button in my email signature to make an appointment. That button will take you right here. It'll give you an option to make an appointment with me without my knowledge. Now, it is with my knowledge because I've gone in here and scheduled the times that you have available, how long the interval is that you can schedule the time with me, so on and so forth. So for me, I'm going to do create a new appointment schedule. Why won't it let me do that? Let's do add availability. Why won't it let me do create a new one? Schedule to share, learn more about it. Okay. I don't know why it's giving me a hard time with this, but we're gonna go with my agent services one-on-one just to show you the functionality here. Okay, so let's say it's I want to make an appointment with Farah, and this has a lot of applications. For instance, let's say you have a property that you would like to show. It's like your own personal one-on-one showing time, right? Like let's say you have a property that is your listing. That's what I meant to say. And you want people to be able to come and see it. You can connect your email and put a link in your listing to say, hey, click here and make an appointment to come view the property. Obviously, we got to be careful of how we communicate and all the documentation, et cetera, et cetera. However, I'm more speaking to the functionality. So add availability to an existing schedule. For you guys, you would create a new appointment schedule, but I'm going to edit my appointment schedule to show you what it's like. When you hit create new, you're going to get this and it's going to be absolutely blank. It's called a bookable appointment schedule. This means I can give people who click a button or who I share this link with an opportunity to choose a date and time to meet with me, and it'll just show up on my calendar and show without asking me, and it makes it so much more easier, so much easier, not more easier, so much easier and more efficient, because that's the name of the game, right? Efficiency. So at the top, we have appointment duration. How long do I want this appointment? 30 minutes for me. Maybe it's an hour for you. Maybe it's 2 hours. It really depends on what your needs are. General availability, when you set your regularly available appointments, right? So here we want to repeat these weekly, and we got an option. Maybe it doesn't repeat. Maybe it's just for this week that I'm giving people access to my calendar. Maybe it's custom, maybe it's repeat weekly. And again, you'll see a lot of the controls within Google Calendar repeat themselves, right? Because we had this option when we were creating an event. Is it repeating weekly? Is it repeating monthly? Customize it, etc. Then you can go from day to day and say either I am unavailable or I am available. I'm never available on Mondays. Mondays are my Monday, right? So Monday is never on this for me. However, Tuesday 2 to 4, I have 4 spots available because they are 30 minutes long each, right? Then we have a couple of other things. We have scheduling windows. This just simply means how far in advance somebody can schedule an appointment with me. Adjusted availability just indicates the time you're available for specific dates. So let's say, let's say I'm on holiday for the week of Thanksgiving. That means I don't want to necessarily delete this. However, I'm going to adjust my availability to block out Thanksgiving on this. Booked appointment setting, there's no buffer time, because if you're meeting me, we're either meeting at the Wellington office or the PSL office or whatever the case is. And what calendar will it populate on my end? What calendar will I see it on my end? It has regional agent services, director of agent services, or I can do another calendar if I like. And of course, check a calendar for availability. This is really, really cool. And I'm going to tell you why. If I have done something or put an event in one of these time slots, this function will naturally block someone from being able to book it. So I will never get a double booking. This is a really, really great way to manage your schedule and give people options about how they can interact with you. Booking page, photo, and name. This portion is about what it looks to the recipient. How does the person who's trying to book this event with me see my space of time, see my calendar? Well, you have a huge description box where you can write quite a bit. And mine is basically a thank you message. Thank you for scheduling an appointment for agent services. Our one-on-one 30-minute session is an opportunity for you to sit down with the regional director of agent services to get help with ... right? So your message and your description will kind of set the parameters for the interaction. What do they expect out of this interaction? Maybe they have a question. Maybe what they need help with is longer than 30 minutes, and this is not a really good setting for them, right? This is something we should maybe reevaluate and reschedule. This has tons and tons of applications. I'm just going to hit save for now. Now, we definitely talked about time blocking. As you can see, I'm going to start getting into the nitty-gritty of the things that I have scheduled. So I do a lot of administrative work within my position. A lot of the tasks that I fulfill on a day-to-day basis really do fall into the administrative realm, right? So if you see every single morning at 9 a.m., I have 15 minutes, sorry, 30 minutes of morning admin. This is so important to me. This is when I take the time to write my to-do list, review yesterday's to-do list to say, hey, we forgot a couple of things that are on the B2C level. We need to roll them over or maybe reevaluate and say, hey, I don't want them on there anymore. Then it gives me time to go through and say, okay, let's look at the 80-20. What are the 20% of things that I need to do today that will make my day a successful day, right? Because that's what we really want to be perceiving it as. What will it take for me to consider today to have been a successful day? On Mondays, you notice I have an extra 30 minutes to weekly planning, and I have a whiteboard in my office. I wish I could show it to you and turn you around, where I do an overview of the week and do an 80-20 for my entire week. What are the 20% of things that I need to do that will make this week successful? What are the non-negotiables that need to occur this week? Cannot get out of the week without these things having occurred. Of course, any meetings that I have going here, of course, I have Finish Strong 10:30 on Mondays. I'm always on those as well. And I also utilize this time to communicate with people management throughout the region. So for instance, if there's something that Vanny and I do, or I ask Vanny to do, like that only happens the first week of the month, it'll be on the calendar to say, hey, this is due today, and can you help me with it? And this is what it is. I'll also use that as an opportunity to add any links, any type of documents that are required for that to occur into there as well. If you do nothing else at all, I definitely recommend doing a weekly planning, because at least you get a hold and a sense of what's not done, what needs to be done, what's occurring. I'll be honest, I even do this with my family on Sunday evenings. We look at all of our calendars, we look at all of our schedules, my son included, he's in school, he's in sports, etc. Right? Look at all of these things and say who needs to be where, who's on drop off, who's on pick off. And I only have one kid and I still do it. And that is about it. Really, at the end of the day, you want to, here's my last, like, final note. Really, what you want to make sure that you are doing is you are reevaluating at the beginning of the week. Always, even if you do nothing else, you take only one thing from here, reevaluate your goals weekly. Identify what it takes for you to be successful and know, am I achieving it or am I not? And then go from there. All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining me. Have a great day and bye.